The painting we are looking at is called Mephisto, and it was painted in 1895 by a German artist you have probably never heard of. Mephisto is a shortened form of the name Mephistopheles, a demon who appears in the Faust myth, a story that became very popular across Europe toward the end of the Middle Ages. But what is truly interesting about this painting is not that reference, but the way the artist chose to portray this demon. We are used to seeing demons as monsters with horns, wings, or distorted faces. Here, however, we see none of that. Instead, the demon appears as an elderly man, elegantly dressed in a red suit, leaning toward us with an expression that is difficult to define. He is smiling, but we are not yet sure why. Rather than looking like a creature from hell, this Mephisto feels uncomfortably human, like someone you could easily pass on the street, or even someone who might approach you and try to befriend you. And this makes complete sense. In the Faust myth, Mephisto, or rather Mephistopheles, is the demon in charge of striking deals and collecting souls. The story begins with Faust, a cultured, brilliant, ambitious man who is nonetheless deeply dissatisfied. He knew almost everything: astronomy, medicine, theology, philosophy, and yet none of it was enough. All that knowledge failed to give him what he truly sought. What Faust wanted was more. More knowledge, more power, more experiences. He wanted to break the limits of the human condition and go beyond what anyone else had ever achieved. And since he could not find that more through ordinary means, he decided to look elsewhere. And that is where Mephistopheles enters the story. One day, Faust summons an infernal spirit, and the one who appears is Mephistopheles himself, an elegant, charismatic figure who does not come to terrify him, but to make him an offer. He proposes a pact. For 24 years, Faust will have everything: unlimited knowledge, renewed youth, pleasure without restriction, anything he can imagine. But in return, at the end of those 24 years, his soul will no longer belong to him. And Faust accepts. This agreement, known as the Faustian bargain, became one of the most influential ideas in Western literature. It first appeared in a popular German text at the end of the 16th century, but grew more complex over time. In 1592, the English playwright Christopher Marlowe turned Faust into a tragic figure, torn between desire and guilt, and in 1808, Goethe elevated the story to another level. In his version, Faust is no longer seeking mere earthly pleasures, but meaning itself, becoming a symbol of the modern man who risks everything in search of a purpose that gives life true significance. Now, there is an important point worth clarifying. Mephistopheles is not Lucifer. He is rather an intermediary, a messenger who acts on behalf of others. His power lies in how he presents himself. He is not violent, he does not force, and he does not inspire fear. He is seductive and rational, almost as if he understands your desires and knows exactly how to fulfill them. And that is precisely his role in this story. Not to compel you, but to show you an option, to place the contract on the table and let you decide. Because in the end, this story is not only about selling one's soul, but about what you are willing to give up to obtain what you desire most. Now, although we have not mentioned him until this point, the artist who painted Mephisto in this way was Eduard von Grützner, a 19th century German painter. However, he was not the first to imagine this character. Over time, many artists attempted to capture the figure of Mephistopheles in their works, each from a different perspective. One of the best known examples is the painting by Friedrich Moritz August Retzsch, which we have already analyzed on this channel. In it, we see Faust and Mephisto playing a game of chess. The board represents Faust's soul, and Mephisto, calm and confident, moves the pieces as if he already knows he will win. Faust, by contrast, appears frustrated, sensing that he is losing the game. This scene perfectly captures the essence of the myth. The demon does not attack, he simply waits for you to make the wrong decision. There are also other illustrations that depict Mephistopheles as a much darker figure. For example, in one of the most popular lithographs by Eugène Delacroix, the demon appears with wings, moving through the air, presented as a far more grotesque presence. When we compare all of this to Grützner's work, the contrast becomes very clear. While other artists present Mephisto as a terrifying figure, Grützner brings him completely down to earth. He gives him a body, an age, a personality, and turns him into someone real. When looking at this painting, it does not feel like we are facing a supernatural threat, but rather someone who could sit next to you, look at you with that mocking expression, and begin to speak. And that is precisely where his version becomes especially disturbing. Eduard von Grützner created this work in 1895, and in the painting we see Mephisto standing, slightly leaning forward as if he were approaching us. He gives the impression that he has just made you a proposal and is now waiting for your answer. His body turns slightly to his left, and his gaze follows in that same direction, as if something or someone were outside the frame. This creates an uneasy tension and makes us wonder whom he might be observing, or whether something is happening beyond what we can see. One of the most striking aspects of this painting, however, is his clothing. This elderly man is dressed entirely in red, wearing a fitted tunic buttoned all the way up to the neck with carefully crafted details. On his head, he wears a hat of the same color, adorned with an exaggerated feather that rises upward. This feather is particularly important. At the time, feathers in hats were not a common accessory in everyday clothing. They were more often associated with theatrical costumes or with courtly figures. In the classic versions of the story, such as those by Christopher Marlowe or Goethe, Mephistopheles does not have a fixed appearance. At times he transforms, at times he disguises himself. In some passages, it is even mentioned that he changes form in order not to appear too threatening. In Marlowe's text, Faust actually asks him to adopt a more pleasant, more human form. So this red, theatrical, elegant attire is not an invention of the artist, but a visual interpretation that aligns perfectly with the literary tradition. It represents a demon who does not need to appear monstrous, because his power does not lie in fear, but in seduction. And now is the moment when I believe we should talk about his face. His expression is complex. I would not say he is openly smiling, but there is certainly a subtle curve to his lips. He seems to take pleasure in placing temptation before us, enjoying the moment when he plants doubt in your mind and waits to see what you will do with it. If I had to explain why this painting feels so disturbing, at least to me, it would not be because of the colors or the expression alone. What truly unsettles is how deeply human this demon appears. Grützner does not show us a monstrous creature, nor does he rely on the classic symbols of evil. There are no horns, no fire. What we see is a man with an ordinary face, a confident posture, and a gaze that feels disturbingly familiar. And perhaps that is why it is so uncomfortable, because you may already be finding a resemblance to someone. Maybe he reminds you of someone you once knew, or someone you once saw. Because in real life, temptation comes through real people, with real faces. Evil often does not present itself as something obvious, but as something reasonable, tempting, and even charming. And that is exactly what Mephisto represents. He does not need to inspire fear to exert power, he only needs to appear normal. We are not looking at a fantastical figure, but at something that could exist among us. Someone we may have crossed paths with countless times without ever realizing it. Thank you for watching this video until the end. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you would like to collect this painting for your own home, I would like to remind you that it is available on our website. Shipping is completely free, and by purchasing from the store, you are greatly supporting me and helping me continue creating more videos like this one. You will find the link in the description. Thank you for your support, and I will see you in the next video.